Soul Scripts presents Conversations with Your Higher Self. Today we have Kristie Sparksman, a human-shaped disco ball. I just love this bio here. She is made of many fragments pieced together from a sparkling whole. Her laughter and lightness mingles with depth and darkness, gleaned from hellfires of deep transformation. She is here for the human, a midwife for complex trauma integration, both quantum and somatic levels. No matter the abyss, she will throw herself into it, forever a student, forever humbled. Her heart is big, her wit is quick, her wisdom is embodied. And this is exactly why I had to have you on here today. Oh my gosh, the energy that you radiate just in everything that you do, that we've never met in person, but on social media, I'm just like, oh, I just love this person. And I don't even know you. So welcome, Kristie.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so glad. So let's start with telling us how you first connected with your higher self. Where did that journey begin for you?
This is a good question. Because I was thinking about this actually moments before we started chatting, was when that kind of started happening for me. Because my first answer is that I've always been connected to her, it, whatever you want to call it, her. I'll call her her. I've always
Big
been
her and the
connected.
little her.
Yeah. It just seems like for my life up until my awakening was inverted. My higher self was inverted. It was sort of this voice that I thought was shame, and that was a mixture of like internalized critical parents and things like that, society programming. But she's always been there. She's just sort of been quiet. There's been almost like a too many voices yelling, to competing with her essentially. And I put it over here because it always feels like she's kind of like on my shoulder, almost like a little buddy, like whispering
Yeah.
little things into my ear. So I would say it's been all my life that I've known something. I guess in like a broader sense, I've always known things didn't feel right with the way that I was like living my life, and the things I observed as a kid. I was like, this doesn't seem right. I was always very sensitive to, what was not being said by parents or society. I was always like asking questions, like, why do we do things this way? Like, why do we eat eggs and bacon for breakfast? Like, why do we have to do that? Like even something simple like that. Why do we eat dinner at 6 p.m.? And I would always ask these questions, and my parents would be like, that's just because that's how we do it, But I always had this like little itch of, well, do we have to do it this way? And I never lost that itch. It just got pushed way down. And I think that itch was sort of that little person on my shoulder also, being like, hey, you can ask questions. It's okay.
I like it. That's a great visual. So when did it all crack open for you? What was kind of the pivotal point? Like one of the hellfires that you walk through to go, whoa, wait, no, this connection here has got to be observed and listened to.
Hmm. In 2017, it wasn't super long ago, actually. It was, well, in 2015, I started sort of on a self. I was very much, in self-help, self-betterment mode, and I bought almost every book you can get your hands on. Dove
Me
into,
too.
yeah. Dove into psychology, dove into diet, nutrition. I started, going to the gym. I went vegan. I started taking care of myself in ways that I hadn't ever really done before. And, I got married. I met a really wonderful, amazing, kind man. I had never dated someone like him before. And, I was just like, oh, this is just what I have to do. Like, I graduated a valedictorian of my class. I got a job. I was making money, following all of those, little steps that you're supposed to do.
Yep.
And then in 2017, I met my twin flame. And as these relationships go, it just crash. Everything around me suddenly did not make sense. And it was quite sudden. It wasn't like a slow burner, I would say. It was like all of a sudden I looked around and was like, that's not me. This career isn't me. This man I married is not my, it's just nothing made sense anymore.
Wow.
It was very jarring, as
Yeah,
you can probably
that.
tell. Yeah, and yeah, everything just sort of crumbled like pretty quickly. I quit drinking, I quit smoking, I quit drugs, I quit I quit all of these things that weren't me essentially. I quit my marriage, my job, everything slowly kind of, but also quickly it feels for the consequential 2 years after that until 2019, and then I really went into like the healing cave from 2019 until now.
So tell us about this twin flame journey.
Oh yeah. Are you familiar with it? Like the
A little bit. I have a hard time with, well, first of all, labels bother me,
totally.
but what else would you call it? I mean,
Mm.
it's either your soulmate, twin flame, your kindred spirit, your other half. I mean, are they all kind of the same, or
Yeah.
enlighten me? Let me know
Yeah.
what's the best, what's the protocol on that? Are they all different or are they all the same?
I mean, I've also recently just let go of all the labels and kind of like transcended that need to have like a special one or anything like that. So, um, I might not be the best person to ask, but before, yeah, I mean, when we met, it was like that direct soul mirror to like everything that you had been hiding or repressing inside. So, when him and I interacted, I could see all of my stuff, all of my wounds. I could also see all of the ways that I had yet to integrate within myself. So he essentially had all of the complementary attributes that I had always desired within myself. Like he was organized, he really got things done, a real go-getter and all this stuff. And I we just like saw the like equivalent of ourselves, but really what we were seeing was that like part of ourselves that we had yet to integrate within us in each
Mm.
other. So naturally that was very triggering. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I clung to that relationship as hard as I could because I did not know anything about spirituality or anything like that yet, or about energy, about any of that stuff, any cosmic stuff. I was just not. I just was like, this is the one. I need to have him. It was like that old fairy tale
Yeah.
romantic story. um, and so like disintegrated. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Disintegrated our lives. He left a 15-year marriage. I Yeah, I left my marriage. We were like just we were on the same page. We were heading towards each other and just fumbled it. Like the wounds were just so big. We were trying all of these mechanisms to like every time I'd run towards him, he'd run away and things like that. So it was just this like dynamic of just it was so messy. And finally, um, actually, this is a good kind of story. It was my 30th birthday a few years back, and I was on my bike riding it to a yoga class and passing through this intersection. And as soon as I got across the intersection, there's a little gas station. A car was turning into the gas station and like came this close to like smashing into my bike.
Oh
But
my
I
gosh.
flew off anyways because you naturally like jerk
Yeah.
away from this like
Yeah.
pain. And I flew off the handlebars, and as soon as I got up, I was in a daze, but the only thing I heard was pay attention. Like it was like this was an act of God type of situation. And I
Mm.
moved to the sidewalk. My elbow was pretty banged up. People were like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And all I could think was, this is God. This is God. This is like a divine
Wow.
intervention because of all the clinging I was doing towards my twin or whatever you want to call it. Just a divine
Yeah.
catalyst.
Yeah. Right, right, right.
And, I really got the message because my higher self, had been whispering to me, for about a year up until that point.
Mm.
Separate. You two need to like go your separate ways. You need to go your separate ways. But I was like, no. You know, I was like,
Yeah,
so
I
I
want
was
what I want.
exactly no. My human self was like, hell no. I'm grabbing onto this and not letting go with like white knuckles. So it finally took this like near smash for me to wake up. And the next day, I asked for him for space. I said, I think we really need to have our own space now to finally like heal our stuff. And then 3 months after that, I moved back to my hometown and like dove into myself essentially.
Wow. See, everybody has this idea that I'm going to find my soulmate, my twin flame. It's going to be wonderful. We're going to mesh together. When the reality is, these people are major mirrors, major triggers. Like, it's basically, this is a person you have agreement with to come into this life and stir your shit up. You know, it's going to be fun. You're going to have great sex and have good times, but you know what? They're going to stir your shit up. So, yeah. Now, do you think, in retrospect, if you were to be at the place you were now, minus Ryan, um, and you were to meet this person, do you think it would go differently because you've done so much deep diving and so much work? Or do you think it was still just only for that point in time?
Mm. Well, yeah, this is a really interesting question because it kind of it really touches on what I've been going through in the last I would say like 3-ish months. So when I'll kind of I'll preface and then I'll get into it. I was so in 2019 when I moved back to Calgary, Alberta. That's where I'm from. I was living in Vancouver at the time, and that's where my twin and I had met. And so I moved back to Calgary and started, you know, going through the actual process of doing like deep complex trauma work, releasing so much grief and, you know, drawing boundaries for the first time and doing all of this like really intense work of like separating myself from dysfunctional families and stuff like that. Uh, when I was doing all this process, I still had in my mind and in my heart, like, I have to do this to achieve this. You know, I was like, I didn't realize consciously that I was still had in my mind, like, if I do all this work, he's going to come back. You know, I didn't realize I was so stuck on that. Like, my expectation was
Mm.
still like, I'm doing all, it's like a total codependency of, you know, do X to get Y. And
Right.
so as I was, as I was going through doing this work and I started feeling, you know, much more centered and whole within myself, realizing like, hey, I actually don't need anyone else to you know, nurture myself because I can do that. I can be the mother, the father, the partner, the lover, the friend that I didn't have. I can be that person for myself. And it would be nice to, you know, be in a relationship, but only if, you know, one comes along that's, you know, that would work well with me. And I started feeling really okay. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I just hope he's happy. And I hope he's, you know, figuring all this stuff out for himself, you know, because we were both pretty wounded. And I started wishing him the best. And I really started feeling okay alone for the first time in my life. Like, I used to be a
Mm.
hop to relationship person, all this like
Mhm.
trauma and wounds and bonding stuff from childhood and probably many past lives. And I started feeling okay alone, and that's when Ryan kind of came into the picture. And that challenged me so much because as soon as I realized I had feelings for Ryan, we had been friends for about 8 months before anything sort of came up that was more than friends. I hadn't considered him anything more than a friend until the moment I did. It was sort of like
Yeah.
this intellectual download from my heart that was like, you now have feelings for Ryan, and I was like, what? Like it's funny how that works. It was like
Yeah.
quite literally like someone like put in a CD-ROM, pushed the thing. I'm I'm a child that got brought
Yeah.
up during the
Yeah.
internet, so
I would
CD-ROM.
have put in a floppy drive.
Yeah, floppy drive. I was gonna say that, but I was like, maybe I should keep it kind of relevant. It was like, yeah, something got installed in me that was like, okay, you're doing this now, and I was like, what? Because I didn't even realize I still had these expectations about my twin, and so I told Ryan this, and he was kind of like, yeah, like I already knew this. Like I knew we were going to be doing this. And I was like, what? Like I just, you know.
No one
And
told
so
me.
I know, yeah. Who let me know? And so I asked him for space. I backed off. I said, I just need some time to figure this out because I was very honest with him about all the stuff involving my twin. I was like, I still love this person, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. So it took a good, like, I would say 3 weeks for me to really work through, like, oh, wow, I still have this expectation that if I do X, Y will happen.
Wow.
And it was totally humbling, Allison. It was like a kick to the like gut a bit. I was like, oh wow, ooh, like maybe this isn't the plan, and then I had to go into this grieving process of like, man, I didn't realize I had this plan still, this like
Mm.
plan, this like control need, to like know what was coming next. And it was a very humbling and surrendering process. And
Mm.
I knew Ryan had come in to basically what I heard from inside was that I had come as far as I could with my healing, alone, and I needed to kind of have that mirror of another partner in order to get the rest of it, because I did a lot, like I've done a lot in the last few years, and in
Mhm.
the last month that Ryan and I have actually been in each other's physical space, I have been triggered every day.
Wow.
Oh yeah, but it's beautiful, but it's also like, oh wow, I did not realize like I had all this stuff, or maybe I did, and I just had, ooh,
Wow.
yeah,
But how wonderful that you guys can be there for each other and go through that. So he, the honesty and truth sharing and openness is just there to where you can say, okay, whoa, I'm really triggered right now, and that person's there to support you and carry, help carry you through it, not do the work for you, but that's got to be wonderful.
it is. It's like something I've never had before. Same for him, and we've built this sort of really safe container in order to take our armor off, is what I call it, where we're just able to say what's going on for us inside and have the other person, hold space in a totally non-judgmental way. And, that's so hugely important. I can't even stress that enough when it comes to healing like
Mhm.
complex trauma, because like relationships are broken. Oh, sorry. Trauma, a lot of trauma has to do with broken relationships. Those initial relationships with our caregivers. If we don't get the things that we need developmentally from them, our relationships, by consequence, are going to have those same sort of traits usually going on. And
Mhm.
the same is like it's the same for Ryan and I. We have our very similar traumas. We both operate in the almost the same way. Like it's so whenever he does something, I'm like, oh wow, that's what I do. So we can easily see like, oh, he's going into shutdown mode. Oh, she's angry and needs space to process. So we can easily understand each other, and it's just like obviously this was supposed to happen, because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just too perfect in those ways. The aligned traumas, the way that we both operate, it's just too perfect for it to not be. You know what I mean? There's a
Mhm.
lot of deep
Mhm.
healing going on. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love the armor analogy because it's so true. I think back to past relationships that I've had where, you can see this part of me, but this part of me I'm going to keep hidden. I'm not going to be authentic with you. I'm not going to let you in fear of a broken heart, fear of being ridiculed, fear of being shamed, or what have you. And when you can just totally be in alignment in your authenticity of who you are with somebody, wow, that's like the best, totally the best.
Yeah.
So, how did you guys? I mean, how did Ryan? And clearly, Ryan knew before you. How did he seek you out? How did he know you were that person? And
Um,
what would you? And okay, I don't like the labels, but what would you call it? You've had a twin flame. Is this twin flame 2.0 or what is this?
well, it's so funny. we were friends. We just met on Facebook through the group Sology, and he's good friends with a lot of people that I am, and so we just kind of met by consequence of that. We just started messaging like funny things back and forth, and that was all it was for up until I would say July. But then we started getting more serious with our conversations. Like I was opening up to him in ways that I hadn't been able to open up to with men before. I had a lot of trauma involving, father, stepfather, etc., and past relationships. So I had a big problem with opening up to a man, and Ryan just was very easy to do that with. And like I said, my armor started to kind of fall away, and then I had like a strange symptom, like a health symptom in July, end of July. My left breast swelled up very big, and I was doing a lot of forgiveness work around mother wounds at that time. But I was really concerned with this because it was so tender, it was so swollen, it felt like hard, and I was like, oh no, what is this? So Ryan happened to be around. He was my best friend essentially at this time, and so I told him all about it, and he really just held such amazing space for me going through that and didn't try to fix me. He just let me kind of be in my process, but also support me. And I had a freak out. I was like, I'm dying. It's all this stuff. I went and got it. I got an ultrasound and everything. There was nothing wrong. There's nothing like physically wrong. And I kind of knew that. I was like this. I feel like this has to do with the grief and the forgiveness around the mother wound. And
oh wow,
yeah.
That's so profound. I mean,
Yeah.
for it to manifest like in that way. Wow.
Big time, like right above my heart, that, and it just, but of course I wanted to make sure at the hospital just to get it checked out. And anyways, after that, after I had kind of been really vulnerable and tender, with him, like that's kind of like a tender thing to share with somebody. And he, like, I woke up one morning, and like I told you, it was like that CD-ROM was put in, and I was like, I think that I have feelings for you. Like I said it just like that. Like he has the voice recording. It was probably a little more high pitched than that even, but I was like confused. I was like, are you feeling this too? Like, am I crazy? And he was kind of like, you know how I feel about you. Like, and I was like, so I can't speak to like when he knew, or it was like just gonna wait for me to like figure it out. But as soon as we announced it, like we did like a live. I'm not sure if you saw it or if we were Facebook friends then, but we did a live in August where we just like told everyone that we were coming out. Oh,
how wonderful. No, I didn't see it. I did see you guys on Todd Medina, and that's what triggered me to reach out to you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was really funny. People were like, loved it. And like, it was a very silly, but also like honest live. And, people of course were throwing labels on us. They're like, you're twin flames, you're all this stuff. And I was like, honestly, like, I don't think Ryan, no, I don't have a label for it. He's just a sacred partner to me, and
I like that label.
I'm done with the labels. Like, I don't need him to be anything. Like, we've discovered like a few other names he could be. Like, there's this thing called Twin Ray. Apparently that's your like highest soulmate. It doesn't matter to us really. We've done this before in other lifetimes, and we're doing it now.
Yeah. I feel that with my husband too. There's this deep knowing of gosh, we've gone through so much shit. Let's just have fun this time.
Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah.
So that kind of transition, now you're up in Canada when you're talking to him, and he's like, hey, come on down to Texas. And you go. That's got to throw a lot of people around you into a little bit of a spin, huh? Because if you're not in this space. I mean, I could see the old me seeing my daughter do that. I'd be like, what the hell are you doing? This guy could be a murderer. What's going on here? But being in the place that I'm at now and the growth that I've gone through, stuff like this isn't surprising to me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So are you
Yeah.
dealing with a lot of backlash from this transition, or should we not go there? Because we can certainly move on to something else.
Oh, we can go there. We can go
Okay.
anywhere.
Okay. I knew you were down for it.
I'm an open book. So in November last year, I had the intuition that I was to get rid of my family on Facebook, like just delete
Mm,
everyone away. The you know the templates that I kind of incarnated with were like highly dysfunctional family stuff, and that's like one of my major kind of, I'm very called to serve in relation to the family dynamic and helping people overcome low nurturance childhoods.
mm,
And so, so essentially, what prompted this was I kept sharing these things, and I was just finding my footing with sharing online. And every time I would, take one step, they'd grab me back and be like, "Don't share that. You can't talk about this," and all this stuff. Comment on it. Didn't
mm.
do all this like reality denying, and you didn't go through that and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what? I know this is a big test for me, and I know, at the soul level, they love me deeply enough to perform these roles for me. So
Yes.
what it was really about was empowering myself to finally have boundaries and take a stand in my own power and sovereignty. So I deleted everyone, and I essentially asked for space. So for about 6, 7 months, I didn't talk to any of them, and I really just found my own center, learned to nurture myself and have
Mm,
compassion like a mother would. I'm still working through a lot of father stuff right now. That's a really big, deep one for me, and but I'm that's sort of like an active thing right now with me is working through that like power and protection, self protection, and things like that. And so I'm not going to invite them back into my Facebook. I've kind of just turned that to sort of be my own like public page for people that align. Um, and it's okay like that they don't align. Like I don't necessarily need my family's support in that way anymore. Like I have enough of it myself that I don't need them to approve of me.
mhm.
And to go into like what you're saying, I mean, of course they add like had questions and stuff, but I'm only answering it to like what I don't need to explain essentially is what it comes down to. And I didn't go into detail. I'm only sharing as much as I feel is necessary. And that's the thing with dysfunctional families, or at least like the system where when one person tries to kind of escape the system, it kind of forces everyone else to change because they've changed. Like now I don't tolerate certain things. It
Mm,
kind of forces them to change just because of my own changing. So, of course they don't like that, but they are surprisingly, at least on my mom's side, it's surprisingly respectful of my needs now, because I've changed inside, my reality is now changing outside. And
mm.
it's just beautiful to see that kind of reflection. Like there's still projections that come up, their own fears and stuff. And I thought there would be more. I don't feel like this approval energy, but I also don't feel this attack energy also, which is maybe for the first time because,
Wow.
yeah, yeah,
That's
before
big.
it's huge. Before I've made decisions in my life and all I've gotten were people, family members being like, that's wrong, this is how you should do it, all this stuff. So I just learned to like stop sharing with them. But then that would be wrong too. So it's like you couldn't win. And so I've
Yeah.
just been like, you know what? I need to just be able to know that as long as I have my own approval, then that's okay. So,
That's so beautiful. You are so
yeah.
wise beyond your years. You
Oh,
know
thank you.
that?
Thank you.
Wow, such deep, deep wisdom. Deep
Thank you.
wisdom.
Thank you.
So, okay, so now you're in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep with this, sacred partner theme for a while here because I like it. You guys are such a beautiful example of it and how it can happen no matter where you are on the planet. Um, Tell me more about what you see in the future? I mean, I know we don't like to look too much in the future, but there has to be some conversation about when I might go back or I might not go back. I might stay here for a while.
Yeah, we we have been talking about that, and it wasn't back in August. It wasn't really him inviting me down. I just sort of got this intuitive, again, it was like a download. I don't like saying that because it makes it seem like it's coming from outside of me. I guess it's just sort of like a fountain was like, hello, I have information for you. So,
I
so
like that. My inner fountain.
my inner fountain was spouting wisdom. Um, so yeah, it was sort of like, you're going to Texas now. And I was like, hey, so I'm going to come to Texas. And he was like, yeah. Like, it's almost like he knows.
Yeah, he's like, uh-huh, yep,
Yeah,
it's time.
right on time,
Yep,
on
I knew
schedule.
it. I knew it.
It's exactly like that, though.
Oh,
It's almost
funny.
like he's waiting for me to catch up, but doesn't realize that he is, you know? He's sort of like
Wow.
his higher, wiser self, whatever you want to call it, is like running the show, and his human sort of just like going along with it, but in like a totally like positive way. It's like
That's
it's so
awesome.
cute. Yeah, so I mean, we we've got some stuff on the go, plans for me to stay. It's not, we're not like, nothing is finalized yet, but we are hoping to get. I do feel like I'm called to stay here at least for the meantime. Texas feels really a lot like home for me. It was
Mm.
yeah, the land itself, like just the nature and being out there, it just feels really comfortable. Like it feels like I've been here before, yet I never have. And yeah, it's a totally different, um, I would say, lifestyle than I was used to in Calgary, which in Calgary I kind of, I was doing so much trauma work that you kind of get these like blinders on, like you're kind of just in
Mhm.
your pain healing bubble, and you don't realize that that's all you're doing and that you've kind of lost touch with joy. So
Mm.
it was sort of like what you were saying with your husband. That's why I was like so excited when you said that, because that's what Ryan and I have said. It's like we want to just have fun for a bit, and
Yeah.
I don't remember a time in my life when I was just having fun, except when I was blacking out 6 times a week, and that wasn't even fun. That
Yeah,
was
you're
just,
thinking that drinking's fun until it's like, what happened last night? Ugh.
yeah, like you think you're like living, but really
Yeah.
I haven't really ever had any sort of like innocent fun in my life. Like I don't remember a time. I sort of lost my childhood to a lot of, abusive situations, so I kind of feel like I skipped a childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryan and I have this like beautiful dichotomy where he is very, very playful and fun, and I've always ever just been really serious, like about everything. I'm like, I need to like, I have a very analytical sort of mind, and I like to know how something works and all of this stuff. And he's more just like, let's just go with the flow. And so we're kind of teaching each other how to like pick up the other aspects, because if you have too much fun and you never do
Mm-hmm.
anything serious, it's the same as never being serious and not having any fun. It's sort of like the
Mm-hmm.
both. We're trying to find this like middle ground of like, let's take a few things seriously, but let's have so much fun too.
Oh.
So it's been a really intense learning curve in a good way. And when I say intense, it's just because it's a chronic mirror. Like with him, I'm just, every time I open my mouth, I feel like I should put my foot into it, because I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do relationships. Like I've never had a relationship where it wasn't like a very codependent or manipulative sort of thing. So this is just, we're both like learning on the fly.
Wow. But how beautiful, though. I
Yes,
mean, what a magical unfoldment. What part of
hugely.
Texas are you guys in?
We live just outside of Houston in
Okay.
a city called Katy,
Okay.
and I do have the intuitive fountain telling me that we are going to be relocating to Austin,
Oh,
and
wow.
I think it just said soon, so I don't know when soon is, but sometime soon.
Well, I have a brother-in-law that's relocating there at some point in the next few years. So we'll have to catch up if I'm ever there
Oh,
and you're there.
yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. But I think Houston's probably on par with Florida, if you just go across the Gulf. So yeah, the nature has got to be beautiful there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I saw an armadillo.
Oh,
That's
they're so cute.
that was exciting for me. I've never seen one of those.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're awesome. Let's
Yeah.
go back and touch on the I don't want to say abuse aspect. Everybody dabbles, well,
Mhm.
okay, not everybody. A lot of people dabble in drugs or alcohol at some point in their life,
Mhm.
um, and go down that road. And then, the spiritual awakening comes across. I'm trying to think where I'm going with this. I've noticed for myself in the past year, well, probably more than that, that my body is less and less tolerant of even small amounts of alcohol. So there's a reason it's pushing it away so something else can come in. Um, what would you say to somebody that's still like maybe in that, well, I like to have my 3 or 4 glasses of wine every night, but I'm still trying to be a spiritual person.
Mm.
What kind of ideas could you offer them maybe on processes to release that?
Mm. Yeah, it's funny if you asked me this like 6 months, no, like probably like last year, I would have said, if you're spiritual, you don't drink alcohol. And that I don't know where that belief came from, but I just sort of assumed because I had seen so many people become sober after awakening and things like that. But I know a few spiritual people who drink alcohol casually, and
Yeah,
I don't feel like they're affected in a bad way
yeah,
or whatever
yeah.
you want to
I
call
agree
it.
with
So,
that. Yep.
yeah, so I mean, for me, and from what I know about addiction and obsessive compulsive sort of behaviors, is that they're driven by pain, and
Mm,
they're driven by a need to drown pain in alcohol, fill pain, like the hole of pain. I've heard it referred to as the God-sized hole, and I really like that because that was totally
mm,
what it was for me. There was like a total lack of connection to self, connection to source, connection to all of that.
wow.
And you know, I think I took on a lot. Like I, a lot of people do, of course. It's almost like I was at the grocery store shelf and just like brushed everything off the shelf into my cart and was like, I'll take one of everything, in term in terms of trauma for this lifetime. But I also feel like that's a gift now because I'll be able to serve in like a very broad way. So,
Oh yeah.
um, yeah.
I think
So,
all of us right now in this space have the shittiest freaking like shit happen to us, where it's like, okay, well, now I'm prepared for anything you can throw at me.
oh yeah, oh 100%. That's exactly how I feel. There's still those moments, like I had one a few days ago where I just felt, it's you just fall down a hole and you're like, holy shit, I cannot believe how much pain I've been in. Because once you kind of crack it open, it just comes out. And
Mm,
when you realize, when you're actually able to like knock those blinders off of denial, you realize like just how little someone was there for you in your childhood and just how long you've been carrying that. It's a lot. And I think a lot of people don't realize maybe that their childhood wasn't as nurturing as it could be because it's so normalized,
yeah.
where it's normalized, I would say, to like, you know, uh, spank your kids, or I'm just saying in general, like I don't specific,
Mm-hmm.
or shame your kids or criticize your kids. Like that's not actually
Mm-hmm.
normal. That's,
Yeah.
abusive in a way. So,
Mm-hmm.
there's just all these things that I think collectively we're gonna need to start looking at, or at least we are starting to look at it in general, about like where this pain comes from, why people's behavior in the now or when they're adults, why they behave the way they do. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think if we understood how like a nurturing childhood or not affects behavior in the now, we would have a lot more compassion for how people behave, like how people get, how people feel entitled, or how people feel, manipulative, or how people get manipulative, or people that are rude, or people that are demanding. Like all of these behaviors that we would, could be considered dysfunctional,
Hmm.
they come from, depending on how you were raised, right? Like
Yeah.
I would say a lot of them. I don't like using all or nothings, but I mean, I would say that all people on this planet have a trauma or two, like some sort
Yeah.
of thing that's unresolved. You can't really escape it. It just sort of is on a scale from like mild to severe. So I think if people understood how um, trauma shows up in behavior in the now, then they would like have a lot more compassion for their
Mm.
fellow people. And that's kind of like, I feel like a mission or a purpose or whatever, I don't know what you want to call it. I feel like I want to share that and help people with that,
That's
coming.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw a post on your page the other day of you were talking about, oh, what was the phrase that you used? Neurodiversity.
Mm,
And I got the feeling that maybe you've had some experience with that in your life. I have a son who's Asperger's, or labeled again Asperger's. It's just very, very different. He's not neurotypical,
mm-hmm,
but and he's probably been one of the most challenging relationships I've had,
mm,
because his way of seeing the world is so very different than mine, but it's also been beautiful to sit with him and try to see through that lens as well. Have you had any experience with folks like that, or is it just diversity in general you're all about
mm.
aligning with that? I didn't know if that was coming from a personal space or not.
Oh yeah. That was I was tagged in that. I was tagged in that post.
Oh, okay.
No, it's okay though. It's totally it's relevant. My friend Kaylee texted me or tagged me in that post. It Yeah, for me, like I so when okay, so I'll just kind of start with this. So for me, when I was a kid, I didn't bond proper, or like in a secure attachment sort of way to my mother. She was, unavailable emotionally for that kind of thing, and so when a baby isn't able to attach or have that like calming sort of
Mm.
ability for its nervous system regulation, it grows up not being able to learn, like not being able to calm itself, its nervous system. The vagus nerve is like a big thing that I
Yeah.
like to focus on. And so I never learned how to calm myself. So I would reach to drugs, I would reach to smoking, I would reach to alcohol, sex, food, whatever it was outside of me to regulate myself, because I never had that.
Mm.
So when that much cortisol is pumping through your system, stress hormone all the time, because your mom isn't there to hold you, or she's unavailable emotionally, the baby can feel that. It's called
Oh, yeah.
attunement.
Oh,
Yeah.
breaks
And
my
so,
heart.
yeah, breaks my heart too. Our brains quite literally are damaged, and I don't mean that in like a bad or a good way. They're just changed. You get stuck in survival mode. You're
Mm.
hyper vigilant and dissociated. Like that was me. I never was right here. I was always here or here, constantly scanning my environment to make sure I was safe, and also dissociating completely, like did not want to be where I was. So
Mm.
my brain, it's taking, like, thank goodness brains are neuroplastic, so they can be changed,
Mm.
and they can be healed. But for so much of my life, I spent in that like hyper vigilant state of like always on. It's like one foot on the gas, one foot on the brake, constantly like, I don't, and then you shut down.
Oh, wow.
So neurodiversity, I would say, is like, I would just, everybody had a different upbringing, a different situation, like, and it's also
Everybody's
unique.
wired different.
Totally,
Yeah,
everyone's wired
yeah.
differently. So it's almost about like recognizing, like, I've always been very observant. I mean, that was a kind of the inverted hypervigilant. Now I can just observe and see how people kind of operate, and then you kind of like almost like switch up how you're operating in order to help them feel secure and
Mm.
safe. And it's not in like a codependent way. I just mean in like a nervous system regulation sort of way. Like if I see, say, Ryan, we're similar. So if I see him getting into a place where he's a bit like scattered and whatever, I'll invite him to just sit and breathe with me. And once he's
Mm.
able to kind of come back to his body and feel this like co-regulative partnership with me, he's then able to calm down and then actually, proceed with the task or whatever he was doing. So everyone is different, right? So that's why like therapy is not just like a one-stop solution for
Mm.
everyone. Like there's so
No.
many different ways that we can approach these ways to help people kind of come home to themselves. And yeah, neurodiversity is like a huge part of that. For me, like I need calm, uh, and before I do anything like this, like you and I talking, I need a calm space to kind of just center before I come on. I can't just like jump on the fly, take a call, blah, blah, blah. Like I used
Yeah.
to be very multitasker, but
Yeah.
what that was me just being hyper vigilant, being traumatized, running on fumes,
Mm.
being like I can do 10 things at once. Look at how functional I am.
Oh
You
my
know?
gosh, that one hit home.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. When I used to work in the corporate world, that's expected, and it's
Oh yeah.
actually creating more trauma every day.
Uh-huh. You like
Yep.
that survival button gets pushed and you're
Yeah.
like, okay, got to do all these things, and you're just literally going through these patterned responses, and you're
Yeah.
never really present, you
No,
know?
no, you're not.
Never.
Wow.
I,
Wow. That is powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate the clear, immediately go to my experience. So it's beautiful to see the neurodiversity is so much more than just a label that's put on somebody. It's everything that's going on in the brain and how it makes all of us individuals
hmm
in such a big way.
hmm
Thank you for bringing light to that.
Yeah. I sort of feel like I like to bridge sort of two worlds. Like I really like to bridge the like science, psychology kind of like trauma stuff with the spiritual energy, quantum stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel very comfortable kind of bringing both together in a way because if I look back to where I was, say, 3 years ago, I was not anywhere near having knowledge of quantum. If you had said like archangels and stuff, I would have been like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people like that, and so I kind of want to be the bridge, or at least help people sort of come back to like, I guess, reflecting from me, see themselves as, being able to bridge that themselves within, because I'm
That's
not here to save
beautiful.
anyone, just kind of
Well,
be
let's
an
talk about
example.
that. What is it that, let's talk about what you do, Kristie. Share with everybody how they can find you, describe, what your offerings are and that sort of thing.
So I'm kind of actually in the middle of figuring out what that is myself. Not not what I do, but just what I would like to put out there into the world. I don't really have anything official yet. I've worked with a few people, and it's only been sort of word of mouth. And I don't have a website yet. I don't have courses or anything like that. Like, there's nothing really up yet for me. I'm sort of just figuring out what it looks like. I've been really tinkering in with like embodying what I want to talk about before I talk about it, and I'm trying to figure out like there's a bit of shadow in that too of like being scared to put myself out there.
Mm,
There's a bit of that too. I was
yeah.
actually journaling about that today. I was like, because I do realize there's a part of me that is still terrified. That little girl is still terrified to
Mm,
shine, to sparkle, whatever you want to call it. And so yeah, right now I'm I'm building, I would say. Like I shed it all, and now I'm kind of like, okay, what's possible, and
oh,
piecing those little bricks together.
what a
And
beautiful space to be in.
yeah, full of potential and like kind of just humbled and graceful, like quiet. It feels quiet. It's like oh wow, I can now create my life. Like I can actually
Mm,
do what I want to do instead of just going along with things. Like,
yeah.
what? Yeah, so I mean, I would say I am unavailable right now in terms of like working with people. I kind of want to tune in and figure out what that looks like and then put myself out there again. So right
Perfect.
now I'm in this beautiful, harmonious flow state. So,
Well, that analogy of the bridging between the two,
mm,
I only think as things go forward here, there's going to be such a need for that,
mm.
bridging between the people that don't believe in the archangels and the people that are like, but wait a minute, weird shit's happening over here. What's happening? And you
Yeah.
can go like, come here, I'll help you.
Yeah.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
So yeah, eventually what it will be is I want to help people I want to hold space uh, in a way for people to repair that interpersonal bridge, is what I call it. The bridge that might have been broken with their caregivers, just people that have issues with trusting themselves and being in a relationship itself. Like it seems like this relationship with Ryan is really kind of showing me a direction in which I want to take, which is also
Mm.
helping people with complex developmental trauma, but also incorporating energy work. You know, so that's what I'm dancing with, and I think it is. I think it's going to start taking form towards the end of the year and into beyond.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. I can't
Yeah,
wait to watch you blossom. That's
thank
so
you,
beautiful.
thank you. Really appreciate it.
Well, anything you'd like to share before we wrap up today?
No, just that this was such a beautiful conversation,
Yes, it was. I loved it. I
and
love I love all these little relationship nuggets and things like that. I appreciate you sharing this with everybody. I know it's going
thank
to be a
you.
huge benefit.
I feel like went how I kind of work, as I've realized, is that I'll kind of like mess around in something, figure out what I can pull from it, and then share my findings, and kind of be like, well, I kind of figured this part out. If that resonates, cool. That's kind of, and
I love it.
what's funny is that I did a human design thing. Like I don't really take like all those things as like written in stone. They're more just like fun for me. But
Hmm.
I did my human design chart and profile, and I'm a 5-3, which is heretic martyr. That's what the labels are. But
Mm.
essentially, the description of it is you go and you make a bunch of mistakes and then you report back and share. And I was
Oh,
like,
how funny is
I
that?
know, it's so funny. I was like, yep, like that's exactly what I do. I wouldn't call them mistakes, but you know, I mess around and I talk about it, and I mess
Yeah.
around and I talk about it. So it was so funny how that all worked. I was like,
Oh, so wonderful. It was
yeah,
so great to have you on here today, Kristie. I appreciate it so much.
thank you. It was an honor, truly.
And everyone out there, please like, subscribe, share this so we can get the word out and get everybody watching all these wonderful folks that we're having on here. All right. Thank you, my dear.
Yes, see you.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye.